AskReddit by Ibul Tayarosigadin. Who won in court but lost in the court of public opinion? Jennifer Connell was called the worst aunt ever and the aunt from hell for suing her nephew. Her nephew basically jumped into her arms and the extra physical affection broke her arm. Became a really big deal when it happened. Thing is, she needed to name a person at fault for her injury for her insurance and named her nephew with his parents' permission. She wasn't actually suing her nephew, just getting insurance money so she could be treated. The lawsuit was wholly initiated by the insurance company since her injuries were being paid for by the kid's parents' homeowner's liability insurance policy. That's a pretty normal thing, but the media got wind and all hell broke loose. This woman just wanted her medical bills paid. Richard Jewell, the man falsely accused of the Centennial Olympic Park bombings in Atlanta in 1996. He was a security guard and saved dozens of lives by spotting the bomb and clearing spectators. The FBI noted him as a person of interest, and his name was dragged through the mud by local and national media. While the FBI stopped investigating Jewell by October of that year, it wasn't until a couple of years later that his name was truly cleared when Eric Rudolph, the actual bomber, was caught. Jewell sued a number of media outlets and settled with a few of them for an undisclosed amount. No good deed goes unpunished. The dingo took my baby woman. Which turned out to be true as well. Lindy Chamberlain. The City of New London in Callow v City of New London. The city was using the eminent domain to remove a nice lady from her home to build shopping complex. Made its way to the Supreme Court and a 5-4 decision won and Callow lost her home to provide economic opportunities. High profile case where the public sided with Callow but the courts sided with the city. Worst part, the developer skipped town not too long after the trial and now that lady's home is an abandoned construction lot as of a few years ago. That case in Mexico where a rapist was acquitted of rape because he didn't enjoy it. I guess the rapist's dad being a top cartel honcho had nothing to do with it then. O.J. Simpson. He did lose the wrongful death civil trial, but yeah sure beat the criminal rap. Jesse Ventura sued Chris Kyle for defamation but after Chris' death the lawsuit continued and people smeared Jesse for suing a dead man's wife. Jesse eventually got a settlement. Also Chris Kyle was a notorious liar. He claimed the government stationed him on top of the Superdome during Katrina to shoot looters, which would be murder that he's just admitting to. It's amazing that his life and confirmed accomplishments are enough to write an interesting book. Why lie so much? Casey Anthony. I still get so effing infuriated to this day everyone failed that poor baby. Bill Cosby. I literally forget sometimes that his conviction was overturned and vacated. Till he isn't still in prison and that his conviction was overturned. Had no idea. Mason Greenwood 19-year-old raped his girlfriend and audio of it was leaked. After 18 months, the case was dropped and he was shipped off to play for a Spanish club. The audio is bad too. Really bad. Her parents also pressured her afterwards to let it go and refused to be a witness if it went to court. She's expecting his kid now I believe. Really sad case. OJ and Damp. Casey Anthony. Debatably Carla Homolka too cause she got a ridiculously light sentence. KH made a plea deal to put Bernardo away for life before they knew the extent of her involvement. She never should have been allowed out. Monica Lewinsky. She won in court because she wasn't the person on trial. The power dynamics also weren't in her favor. He was her boss. But yet, we still call it the Monica Lewinsky scandal and her name is still brought up in derogatory ways after all these years. Well if you called it the Bill Clinton sex scandal, that really wouldn't narrow it down. The woman who won a damages settlement from McDonald's for being burned by overly hot coffee. It was dangerously hot and they'd been warned before and paid medical bills by court order over other burns. But because she got a high payout over something as seemingly trivial as coffee, she's labeled litigious and dramatic. The burns were awful. And by the way, McDonald's still has coffee that's dangerously hot. They were in the news a week or two ago for another burn case. The phrase in her medical record was fuse labia to leg and the pics are online. Don't look at them. John DeLorean. He was set up by the FBI and his case is the reason for the term entrapment. He was acquitted of all charges. DeLorean needed $17 million to save his company from collapse. To this end, he spent much of 1982 desperately seeking investors for his failing company. He was approached by one such investor named James Hoffman on the 28th of June, 1982, who claimed to have a business opportunity to help save DeLorean's company. Unknown to DeLorean, James Hoffman was actually a convicted drug smuggler, who, in exchange for leniency, struck a deal with federal authorities to become an informant. The most unrealistic part of Back to the Future is a DeLorean making it to 88 miles per hour without anything falling off. Brock the rapist Turner arguably won given his sentencing. Ethan Couch, the Affluenza Kid. Edit, I was wrong. Brock the rapist Turner now goes by Alan the rapist Turner. Sorry for the confusion. The explanation I heard was that Couch's sentence was in essence a trap. As a juvenile, had he been convicted his slate would have been wiped clean on adulthood. 10 years of probation was pretty much a guarantee that he'd violate it, and that he'd be treated as an adult when that happened. So on the whole was the way the judge had available to make his life as complicated as possible. Annalia. I'm sure this case is not known outside of Finland. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/2006_homicide_case?w profs 1. That article doesn't even mention the speculations about occultism and the separate case on sexual abuse allegations towards her own kids, which was later revealed to be something that the now adult kids were pressured into making up by their foster parents. A real shit show. Duke lacrosse players. Yes. Fortunately, the corrupt prosecutor trying to manufacture a case against them to gain votes long after it was obvious they were innocent, due to the racially charged local political dynamics, got what was coming to him later. Per Wikipedia, Michael Byron Nifong, born the 14th of September, 1950, is an American former attorney and convicted criminal. 2. He served as the Durham County, North Carolina District Attorney until he was removed, disbarred, and very briefly jailed following court findings concerning his conduct in the Duke lacrosse case, primarily his conspiring with the DNA lab director to withhold exculpatory DNA evidence that could have acquitted the defendants. Imagine how tarrying it would be as an innocent college student to suddenly have the district attorney criminally conspiring with a crazy lady you don't even know to ruin your life forever. People were shitty about though. Edited to add source. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Mike_Nafong. Kevin Spacey. He didn't so much win in court, his accusers just conveniently died before trial. Dan White getting 5 years for killing Harvey Milk and the mayor of San Francisco. Pretty ridiculous. The Twinkie defense is what they call the reasoning behind this. My dad grew up with Dan White's sister, didn't interact much with Dan White but said that the interactions they did have he seemed fairly mundane. Crazy how lawyers pull stuff like this off. It's mixed for sure, but Michael Jackson went to court twice and was found not guilty, but he'll always be the butt of child molester or pedophile jokes. He only made it to court once. The civil suits were settled out of court, and the first criminal case fell apart because the witness stopped cooperating. The state of Tennessee actually won the infamous monkey trial. https://en.wikipedia.org/. wiki/scopes_trial close bracket where a local teacher was prosecuted for teaching evolution. But if anyone has heard of it today, it's generally presented as a bunch of bullying fundamentalists trying vainly to stamp out ideas they didn't like. There was so much weird about the trial. The teacher didn't even believe in evolution. He was a substitute who agreed to take part in the trial for money. I'm here to predict Lizzo wins in court, but her image will never be the same, if she can win back the public opinion at all. That's a good call. Cause her public opinion has definitely shifted. I used to think she was such a positive, good-natured person, and it was so sad to hear how people were treated on tour. Stella Lee Beck from the McDonald's coffee case. She won her case, but she became the face of frivolous lawsuits after McDonald's campaigned to discredit her. McDonald's policy was to serve coffee so hot that it could cause third-degree burns within seconds of contact with skin, simply to discourage customers from getting refills. Actually, they claimed it was served that hot because many people buy it to consume at work, and that by serving it extra hot it will basically be normal hot when they begin consumption. They had been warned numerous times about serving it that hot. I worked at McDonald's when this all went down, and basically nobody in the store had any question to the validity of the claim because we knew it was way too effing hot. Philip Brailsford, the cop that killed Daniel Shaver, https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/shooting_of_Daniel_Shaver close bracket. The video of that left me sick to my stomach. The man was carelessly shot to death. Cop was tried for second-degree murder, acquitted of all charges, and was hired back to the police force just long enough to earn his pension. David Goodwill raped a woman, not pursued due to insufficient evidence. Civil case convicted him, but couldn't put him on a sex register. Ordered to pay victim, then declared bankruptcy. Can't get a game anywhere in the world. He tried to go to Australia and got hounded out. Lizzie Borden. The cops in her case were literally chastised for how terribly they did in the search. Her own statements were contradictory, and she was caught burning a dress because there was paint on it, and it was ruined. She was acquitted, but most people still think she did it. There's even a nursery rhyme about her murdering her stepmother and dad. The first acquittal of the cops who beat Rudnicking. That was some preposterous bullshit. McMartin preschool trial. The McMartin preschool trial was a daycare sexual abuse case in the 1980s, prosecuted by the Los Angeles District Attorney Ira Reiner. Members of the McMartin family, who operated a preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, were charged with hundreds of acts of sexual abuse of children in their care. Accusations were made in 1983. Nevertheless, arrests and the pre-trial investigation took place from 1984 to 1987, and trials ran from 1987 to 1990. The case lasted 7 years but resulted in no convictions, and all charges were dropped in 1990. https://en.m.wiki.org/wiki/mcmartin_preschool_trial. Lizzie Borden. After going on the tour of the house, I'm convinced the sister and uncle planned it together, and Lizzie was the perfect fall girl. O.J. Simpson. In 1995, Simpson was acquitted of the murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. However, many people believed that Simpson was guilty, and he was widely ostracized after the trial.